That Friday evening settled over the house with a quiet intensity that felt almost sacred, the kind of stillness that only comes after a long week, when exhaustion softens every edge of thought and the world seems to pause just long enough for you to breathe. And as I stepped into my bedroom, muscles aching and mind heavy, I believed with complete certainty that sleep would take me without resistance, that nothing could disturb the calm I had been craving for days, because life lately had finally found a fragile balance. I had been living alone for years after my divorce, learning slowly how to rebuild myself, how to exist without the constant compromise of a failed marriage. And during that time, I had taken in a housemate, Jerry, someone who had started as a practical solution to loneliness and finances, but had gradually become something far more meaningful. A presence that brought warmth into the house in ways I hadn't anticipated, because Jerry wasn't just another adult sharing space. He was attentive, intelligent, emotionally perceptive in a way that both comforted and unsettled me. And though he was nearly 22, there was a depth to him that made conversations linger and silences feel charged. That night, I barely had the energy to change fully, slipping into my pajamas and collapsing onto the bed as moonlight filtered through thin curtains, painting the walls in soft silver shadows, the house quiet, except for distant city sounds and the faint hum of electricity, and I allowed myself to relax, thinking of nothing in particular, just grateful for the rare peace, knowing Jerry had already gone to his room hours earlier after finishing his coursework and gaming, and for the first time all week, I felt truly alone with my thoughts, drifting towards sleep when a soft knock interrupted the darkness gentle enough that for a moment, I thought it was part of a dream until it came again, deliberate and real, pulling me back into awareness as Jerry's voice followed, low and hesitant, calling my name through the door. And I sat up slowly, heart fluttering with concern, inviting him in, watching his silhouette appear in the faint hallway light as he entered and closed the door behind him with unusual care. Standing near the foot of the bed as if unsure where to place himself, his gaze fixed on the floor, shoulders tense, and when he spoke, his words were simple but heavy, admitting he couldn't sleep, that his mind wouldn't quiet, and immediately I recognized that look, the one he wore when something deeper was weighing on him, something he wasn't ready to name, and without thinking I softened my voice, patted the empty space beside me, offering him the comfort of proximity rather than interrogation, because sometimes closeness speaks more clearly than questions. And after a brief hesitation, he joined me, lying on his side facing me, the dim light revealing the exhaustion etched into his features, the vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to see. And as we lay there, the space between us charged with unspoken emotion, I asked gently if he wanted to talk, only for him to shake his head and confess that he just wanted to be near someone who felt safe, words that landed deeper than I expected, stirring something protective and tender inside me as I brushed his hair back, instinctively feeling him relax under the simple gesture, and we settled into silence, sharing warmth under the blanket, listening to each other breathe, the quiet stretching comfortably until he spoke again, asking if I ever missed my past, my old life. The question catching me off guard, but opening a door I hadn't realized was still ajar, and I answered honestly, acknowledging regret without longing, explaining that some things couldn't be fixed, only accepted. And as we talked softly in the dark about choices, about loneliness, about the strange guilt that lingers, even when no one is to blame, I felt the conversation drawing us closer, not physically, but emotionally, as if we were standing on the same fragile ground. And when his head rested against my shoulder, the weight of it sent a ripple through me, unfamiliar and unsettling, because it wasn't just comfort I felt, but awareness. A subtle shift that made my thoughts race, even as his breathing slowed and sleep finally claimed him, leaving me awake beside him, staring into the darkness as memories and emotions tangled together, realizing that something indefinable had surfaced, something deeper than friendship yet not fully understood, a quiet current that refused to be ignored. Morning arrived too soon, pale light filling the room as Jerry slept peacefully beside me. Tension from the night before softened from his face, and I watched him longer than necessary, heart heavy with affection and confusion, before carefully slipping out of bed to retreat into routine, making breakfast downstairs, clinging to the normalcy of sizzling pans and familiar movements while my mind replayed every glance, every word, every moment of closeness. And when Jerry eventually appeared, hair messy, eyes still clouded with sleep yet sharper somehow, more aware, we shared breakfast in gentle silence, exchanging small smiles that carried more weight than they should have. His quiet thank you for the night resonating deeply because it acknowledged not just comfort but connection. And as the day unfolded with ordinary tasks and separate routines, an invisible tension lingered in the house, subtle but undeniable, as if we were both aware that something had shifted even though neither of us named it. And that evening, when we sat together on the couch to watch a movie, the dim room and flickering screen creating an intimate cocoon, I became acutely aware of his presence, of the way his arm brushed mine, of how neither of us moved away. And with every passing minute, the silence between us grew heavier, charged with unspoken understanding, until finally our eyes met and held, long enough that the world beyond that moment faded. And when I reached for his hand, feeling his fingers intertwine with mine without hesitation, it felt less like a decision and more like an acknowledgement of something already there, something that had been building quietly through shared nights, conversations, and unguarded moments. And from then on, that bond deepened naturally. Not rushed but steady, reshaping the way we saw each other, until one autumn night, rain tapping softly against the windows and a fire crackling in the fireplace, we lay together under a blanket, warmth surrounding us, the outside world blurred into insignificance. And as Jerry leaned against me, his breathing slow and calm, I sensed his awareness mirroring my own, that same unspoken truth settling between us. And when he lifted his head and looked at me, really looked, everything crystallized. His whispered confession of love, not framed by obligation or dependency, but by choice and recognition, overwhelming me with its sincerity. And when I admitted that, I felt it too, though I didn't yet know where it would lead. Relief and joy softened his expression, sealing the understanding between us. And when we kissed, gently and without urgency, it felt less like crossing the line and more like stepping fully into something we had already been standing on the edge of. And as the night stretched on in quiet intimacy, wrapped in warmth and whispered reassurances, I realized that our connection had evolved beyond labels, shaped not by convention, but by honesty, mutual respect, and emotional equality. And later, when we returned to my room together, sharing the same space not as a refuge from loneliness, but as a deliberate choice, his arms around me steady and sure, I felt a completeness I hadn't known. I was missing a piece rooted not in escape, but in presence, knowing that whatever the world might say,